Hi, I'm Lisa.
And I'm Cryss.
And we're Knit Sheet.
And totally telling her I was wearing a shawl, and she was like, I want a shawl too. And she went and got a shawl.
I did.
Because she was jelly.
I was. And that's okay. So I got out my hitchhiker. And here I am. I got a shawl too.
That's for sure.
It is. It is.
Are we going to talk about anything today, or is this going to be like the morning videos?
No. We have an agenda today.
Okay.
You have a finished object, so you go first.
I do. I finished my Felicity cardigan. But you will have to put in a picture of it on because that's really how you get like the full impression. But here she is.
Look at my favorite thing about this cardigan is the texture.
One of those straight front cardigans, and she's got her sleeves now because she did not have sleeves before. And I love how the two-tone came out. I think it's just, I think it was a really good idea. I feel like this would be kind of boring in just one color. So I think the two colors and then, repeating that on the sleeve was just a stroke of genius.
If you do say so yourself. Eh?
No, but I really like how it came out. I like the yarn. It is a tiny little bit itchy. Some yarns will just make me itch. It's okay. It's because it's, a layering piece. I know I'll be able to wear something under it.
Yeah.
That will minimize the itching. But she's squishy.
Oh, yes. Now that is something you do get out of this nice, plump,
and this
chunky
is
wool.
Universal.
Yeah, Universal Deluxe. Chunky
Deluxe. But and it's a discontinued yarn. I hope they are planning to replace it with something just as nice because I don't understand who's making these decisions about which yarns get discontinued, but
I'm going to take
I don't approve.
Close-up picture of the texture, and I'm going to add it into the podcast so you can see what we mean by just the gorgeous texture you get on this.
And it's one stitch. It's all half double crochet, but very cleverly arranged. And
I just took some close-up pictures that I will include later.
I absolutely love it. And remember, I was trying to break my crochet on me.
Yes.
And this did it.
You just busted it down. You just busted it on down.
This is, I finished a thing and I'm really happy with it. And so it's just got me, I got my mojo back.
Great. So the impossible dress, is it seeming a little impossible still? Or is it seeming more possible?
It'll be finished at some point, I think. We'll see.
I believe. Okay.
We'll see.
If no one else believes, I believe.
A 3.25 millimeter hook is really small.
You think? And it seemed like a wonderful idea at first, didn't it?
And you know what? It is a good idea because it's a beautiful fabric. And I think crocheters are often told to use too big a hook for their yarn. That is the common recommendation, especially when I see there are a lot of garment patterns. I'm not using a 5 millimeter hook with 3 grain weight yarn.
No,
I'm just not. No, people are doing it.
You're gonna get this thing that just it's like so spacey.
Yeah, it's gonna have
no integrity. The fabric is gonna have no integrity at all.
So I try to use the appropriate size hook for my yarn, and I feel like that gives me the best fabric. And I'm thrilled with the fabric I'm getting.
Yeah.
In the impossible dress.
It's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous.
But I don't know if I'll ever actually have a dress.
You will. One of the things I did want to talk about, though, was the blocking process we went through.
It was a process. I usually don't wet soak. I only did that this time because I had high hopes for Eucalan. I wanted it to do two things for me. I wanted it to hopefully make the fabric a little less itchy for me. And I wanted to try to cut down on some of the wool funk. Days later, I do think it did cut down on the wool funk because when this thing first hit the water,
it smelled like wool.
I was I was aghast.
She was. It was hilarious. She looked like
that stinks. And now I'm like scared of getting caught in the rain in this because I'm like, that's what I'm gonna smell like. But yeah, so days later, yes, the funk has been minimized. I am smelling a little lavender. At the time we were blocking it, Lisa was like, oh, I smell lavender. I was like, no, I smell funk.
Because she's so in tune to the smell of wool. And for her, the smell of wool is a bad smell. And for me, it just smells like wool. And that's what wool smells like.
It smells like eau de sheep.
Somebody shaved the hair off the back of a sheep. What else can it smell like?
So the Eucalan did help with the smell a little bit. And I would say it did soften the fabric a little bit, but just not enough for me to just not experience any itching. Look, wool has scales, and I'm apparently quite sensitive to those scales. And the Eucalan does not magically make those scales go away. It just adds a little bit more lanolin to the garment. But that's why I did want to try wet blocking, because that's a thing I never do. And it was an experience. I had my blockmeister here coaching me through the process, but I was dubious the whole way.
But what you want to do, I was talking actually to Mom about this morning. A lot of people think that blocking means stretch and pin stretched. And it doesn't automatically mean that.
Well, though, I know I see a lot of patterns that tell you to make a 4-inch swatch, but then block it to certain measurements.
Yeah.
So that's what we're being told.
Yes, absolutely. But in this case, with a textured garment like this, if you stretch this, what you will do is stretch the texture right out of it. It will be limp and smooth.
And when we first put it on the mat and it was all spread out, I was like, ah! Because that's what she looked like happened.
We ruined my garment. We ruined it.
I did. I thought it was because I had pretty much exact gauge before it was blocked.
Right.
So any alteration to that was going to just throw the dimensions off completely. And
flatten it out. So when we just laid it out, wool stretches, and this is 100% wool. So it flopped out onto the mats. So what we did was we took the schematic, and it is super important that you keep your schematic around when you're blocking. And all of the points where they had the measurements, we took out a tape measure and measured the garment on the mat and pushed it into the shape that it was supposed to be. Things that need to be square, you square it up. Things that need to be flat, you pat it till you flatten it out. If it's spread out too much, squish it in and then pat it.
This thing would have come out almost twice its size.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And the sleeves, oh my God. I would have had sleeves that were like hanging down.
Exactly. So if that's happened to you in the past, just the weight of the water in the garment will cause it to stretch. And it's your job to put it back into shape. So I was like, okay, Crystal, what's this part supposed to measure? And she was like, 13. I was like, 13? Ooh, let's push this in. And we patted it down.
And she's like, swoosh, swoosh. Just like, she has every confidence that swoosh was going to like magically fix it. And I was just like, it's ruined.
Yeah. So what you want to do is look at each portion of your garment, look at that schematic, and see what measurement is that supposed to have, height and width, because it stretches in both directions. Yes, it does. It does.
But the next day, when it started to dry, then I was like, oh, okay, I think we're okay. Yeah. But I was really surprised that squishing worked.
Yeah, she was like, you really believe in this squishing?
It was an experience.
She was completely dubious.
I've never wet blocked before. I've never wet blocked before.
So also, you want to block before you sew anything together, because that way everything's the size it's supposed to be. Because imagine if we had just laid it out thinking, oh, we're good, everything would have been stretched out. And who knows what size the sleeves would have been compared to the armhole.
Good on.
Yes.
And it really, I'm really happy with the fit.
Yes.
It's oversized, but it's not like droopy.
No.
Yeah.
And that was the other thing you got with this yarn. It has so much bounce
it
holds itself up.
It's a very buoyant fabric.
Yeah.
And I'm incredibly happy with it.
What size hook did you end up using?
A 9mm. But when I sewed my sleeves on, I went down to a 7mm because I almost always do slip stitch seams unless there's a specific reason I think I should do something else. But I didn't, even though something this size I think would have hidden any kind of bulkiness in the seams. I wanted to minimize the bulkiness, and it's also just easier, especially when you're working in the sides of stitches, to just use a slightly smaller hook.
Yeah.
So I went down to a 7mm for my seaming, and I only had to seam the sleeves. The body was made in one piece, but to make the garment, I used a 9mm hook.
When you were putting the sleeves in, how did they fit into the armholes?
The armholes were bigger than the sleeves. I find that it's almost always the case with things I make. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong or if that's just, the nature of the beast. But I kind of held the sleeves in place with stitch markers and just, I don't know, it was just about carefully positioning things so that the sleeve fit in properly. So what I always do when I'm attaching my sleeve is I put the, the two ends of the sleeves together at the center bottom of the armhole. But then I put the center of the sleeve at the center top of the armhole, and I always pin those in place.
Right.
So that at least I know I have half of the sleeve on one side and half of the sleeve on the other side. And it won't make my sleeve too awkward where it's like bunched up in one place and then stretched out in another place. So I'm getting much better at attaching sleeves to things.
Those of you who sew will know that's called easing a sleeve. And even if you're sewing a garment, that is what happens with armholes. You have to ease the sleeve in. You have to ease the bulk of the sleeve in. And pinning the top and pinning the bottom, it holds that section in place while you can kind of manipulate the curve.
There's
some manipulation happening. Yes. But that's what you want to do with your blocking. Think about, does this thing need to be stretched? Does it need to just be put into its shape? If it doesn't need to be stretched, don't stretch it.
Yeah. That's like critically important.
Critically.
It turns out.
We didn't pin anything because nothing needed to be pinned. And as a matter of fact, because we didn't pin it, it was able to bounce back into the shape it needed to be in. Because if we had pinned it in place at that point, it wouldn't have been able to shrink back in. So just keep those kind of points in mind. But I think it came out really great. And we will put pictures of her wearing it in. As you can see, she's very eager. It fits in the shoulders like bam.
I love how it came out. I'm like, oh my gosh. This is a replacement garment because I think I mentioned before that I've made one of these previously and I didn't choose the right yarn. So I'm just so much happier with how it looks in the second version.
Yeah.
It turns out my second time was a charm. See, I have to make a third one.
There you go. There you go. All right. So I do not have a finished item this week. But, well, actually I do. I do and I don't. I have one finished sock.
We do or we don't.
The world is much more complicated. So the answer is we do and we don't. I have one sock finished. And we're calling these my blossom sock because the top kind of looks like a flower. And I did this in Rico Vintage Superba.
Okay, you do that now with that one? It's Superba Vintage?
Oh, Rico Superba Vintage.
It's your chunky deluxe.
It is. I'm gonna just repeat it in my mind a few times so I get it right. But I really love how this sock yarn works up.
I like that color a lot. It's
yeah, I chose it because it's fall and it feels very fallish to me. So I wanted to do a cute little short sock, and because it was a short sock, I wanted to do a decorative bind off for my cuffs. So I went to my book, and I might have it here in my bag. Nope, no, I don't. Anyway,
things we check before we start recording.
It would be nice, though. When we get to be pros, I guess I'll do that.
Okay.
It's called Cast On Bind Off. And I will put a picture of it in later. But it's really such a useful book because it is organized by function. So you want a stretchy bind off? Elastic bind offs are a category. You want a decorative bind off? Because I just went to the decorative bind off section and I picked something I thought would be cute. And all the instructions you need are right there. You can adjust it to any size you happen to be working in. And what I like about having, I think every crafter needs a little, even if it's just a couple of basic books. If I only could have, I don't know, 5 knitting books, really, if it was
just, 5 is a lot.
Yeah, if I had have, my entire knitting library, 5 books.
One of these days, we're going to show y'all her knitting library.
Cast on bind off will be one of them because it's so useful. So I picked this one. This is the Picot bind off. It showed me 2 different ways to do it. And let's say, you didn't kind of get it with the pictures and the written instructions. Now you know exactly what this is called, so it's easier to look up and find a YouTube video with someone doing a demo of how to do it. And you have a basis to judge whether or not the person knows what they're talking about or they just mean well. Because, that's the nature of the beast. Sometimes the person really does mean well and they figured out some kind of way to get this effect, but you may not be able to do it because they may not be saying what exactly they did, or they just did it wrong. And that's just how it works. But really fun. I typically do a fish lips kiss heel. It's a short row heel. And I just use my own sock recipe. And what I normally do is I cast on using the, what's her name? Judy's Magic Bind On? No. I just did it again. I cast on using a variation of the Turkish cast on. There you go. That's the official name. I wrote a blog post. It'll be up this week. And when it's wide enough for my foot, which is usually about 64 to 68 stitches, depending on how burly that sock yarn is. And then I do the foot and the fish lips kiss heel pattern. And I'll put the name up on the screen. Did I save that? No, I didn't. I won't put the name up on the screen.
Okay.
It's the fish lips kiss heel pattern.
Yeah, just do a little bullet point.
Yeah, before we do this.
Okay.
Moving on. It gives you a sizing method that I've been using for years. It never fails. I can make socks for any other person using that method, and the sock actually fits them.
Like Christmas socks, for instance, for a sibling, perhaps.
Really? Oh, interesting.
Yeah, cute little blossom socks.
Really? Fascinating.
I mean, you want to demonstrate for people that your method works. So, if you make a pair that's a different size.
I already made you socks, as I recall.
Not blossom socks.
Not blossom socks?
Not blossom socks with the cute little Picot bind off.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I have not. I have not done that. So typically, when I make a full length sock, instead of an ankle sock, I will knit the leg of the sock the entire length of the foot right up to where the toes stop. And that gives me, I typically make a crew length sock, so mid-calf. And then I will make the cuff about the same height as the toe box. And I find that just gives me a really balanced sock that fits nicely. It stays up because there's enough cuff there. And I will typicically go down a needle size. So I like to make the body on size US 1. That I believe is a 2.25 millimeter needle. And I like to make the cuff on US 0s. And it just pulls everything in.
And you're using DPNs.
Yes, I'm using DPNs or flexi flips. I go back and forth. Those are my typical methods. I've tried magic loop and I've tried two short circulars. Actually, I like the 2 short circulars better than I like magic loop, but I don't like magic loop. And it's just not because it's a bad method, just because of all that cord pulling. I find it breaks my rhythm. I rather just knit round and round and round. So I have a sock and a half done. I have about an inch to go before I start the heel. and then just the cuff and leg. But I love how these colors work. I didn't feel like I needed to do anything else to the sock, so I just made a plain stockinette sock because the pattern is moving in such a fun, jazzy way across the surface of the sock.
It is really cute yarn. I think will make a great sweater.
Yeah, Crystal has her eyes on some of this for a sweater. So be prepared. She's going to make a fingering weight sweater on like a 3mm needle. And she's going to talk about, oh my God, it's so slow. It's so slow. What else you got?
I'm making the vest. It happened by accident. See, what happened was, we have this yarn in the store. It's in the yarn from Universal, and it's called Color Burst. And it keeps walking out the door. So I was like, oh, I think I need to take one of these before they're all gone. And so I have this shawl that I made two of. It's called Shawlette, and I believe it's also by Melissa Leapman.
Yes.
And the pattern calls for a worsted weight yarn, but I've only made it in fingering weight, and I really like it at that weight. But I was curious about what it would look like at a heavier weight. So Color Burst is a DK, and I thought, well, let me try making this shawl a little bit heavier. And then I just realized as I was working on it, I don't want to make this shawl a third time. Like, I've already made two of them, and it's a really simple 2-row repeat. It's very repetitive stitch pattern. That's very cute, and I like the ones that I've made. But like, I'm good. Like, I don't need to make that again. So I was like, I already, started using this yarn. I still need to do something with it. And I was like, well, I had a vintage pattern, like from the 80s, of this like very simple vest. And if you're looking for vintage patterns, MaryMaxim.com has a bunch of them, and you can just buy digital downloads. And I decided to make something, that's the shape of that vest. I'm not following the patterns. I'm not using their stitch pattern or whatever. I'm basically just using their dimensions. So,
quick question. When they sell you the vintage pattern, do they translate any of it into like modern terms?
No. Oh, you're just getting the original pattern.
So just be aware of that. You're going to get an original vintage pattern.
Yeah.
So they didn't always say things the way we do.
Okay, do you have a stitch marker there? Good. All right, so this is, I ended up caking up the Color Burst, so you can see all the different colors that are in there. It's teal and lime green and gray, and I believe it's 660 yards, and it is a wool acrylic blend. And this is either the front or the back of my vest, because they're going to end up being the same thing. But I just like how the colors are working out. So I'm basically getting more or less stripes, and I love it. And so I'm alternating rows of half doubles and doubles in the third loop. So that's just giving me a nice bit of space between that raised edge, that raised braid on the front. And it's really simple. It's not going to have any sleeves, so it'll be very quick to work up. And I'm using a 4mm hook. I think the ball band recommends like a 3.75. So I just went up a tiny little bit just to loosen up the stitches a little bit.
Yeah, you're still getting a good fabric though.
Yeah, but I like it very much. I like working with this yarn. I'm not having any issues with it. It is not the most fun yarn to frog. It does catch on itself a little bit, so you'll just want to take your time if you decide to like frogs. I had, quite a few rows of Shawlette when I decided to rip out.
Yeah, you were close to the middle of Shawlette.
I was. I really was.
Honestly, I was surprised when I saw you start that a third time. I was like, wow. Because I have to say, as a group, me, my mom, my sister, we generally don't make the same thing twice.
Like Felicity, I'm actually getting rid of the old one. So to still have one in my wardrobe, I had to make a second one. But yeah, for the most part, I don't. Like even Charlotte, the first one I made was for myself, but the second one was a store sample for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I couldn't make another one. I just couldn't. I was just like, ugh, it was so boring. It was funny because like as I was working on it, I just kept stopping, like I needed to rest or something.
Yeah,
and it was because I was just so bored.
Straight up boredom.
And this vest that I'm making, it is a super simple stitch pattern. There's nothing exciting or special about it. The waistband, I think I did all single crochet. I didn't bother to do any ribbing. But I'm enjoying this more. I have no idea how it's gonna. I mean, I don't feel like I should have a problem with it, but I just every time I start a thing, especially when I don't have a pattern, I'm just like, I have no idea what's gonna happen.
Can you tell us about what shape the vest is going to be?
So it's going to be boxy, but it's one of those vests where you don't seam the side.
Oh,
so the sides are just going to be completely open.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. That's what I think too. So I'm like, how's this going to turn out? I'm.
So are you making it essentially in one piece that just goes from back to front, or are you seaming at the shoulders?
I plan to seam at the shoulders just because I will be doing a little shaping in the neckline. The original pattern does do a boat neck, I believe. Oh. I don't like boat necks because they're just a little high for me. So I will just do like an inch and a half of shaping at the neckline. So I'll probably, make it in two separate pieces. But I could do it in one continuous piece, but I probably won't. But yeah. That's what I'm working on now, along with, taking a break from the impossible dress.
Yeah. Well, I don't really have anything else besides my socks that I'm working on. I took a break from my sweater because I was sick for the last 2 weeks, and I just didn't have the bandwidth.
Extravagantly ill. It was just like, oh my God.
Like, can you languish any louder?
Her allergies, and she completely lost her voice, which is why we didn't get to put up an episode last week.
Yeah, because I had no voice.
Even as her voice was coming back, like we couldn't film in evenings because by the end of the day,
no voice left.
It was shot. So she's so much better.
Yeah, it was bad. It was really, really bad.
Yeah, it pretty much happens to her like every fall, just like clockwork. So. You just have to just schedule for
get through it. Yeah. It's like, okay, it's coming. It's coming. Oh, it's here. So I did work on my socks because I can knit stockinette, but even that, eventually I had to stop because once your concentration is completely shot, and mine was, you can go ahead and knit or crochet if you like, but generally for me, I end up ripping out everything I did because I do crazy things. I'm like, what did I do?
And you don't know you did a crazy thing till the next day.
No, yeah, you don't know in the moment. Heavens, no. You do 6 inches of that crazy thing. So what I did want to talk about though, because Crystal's tools are much better organized than mine. My tools
they're organized.
Are scattered to the wind.
Why don't you show them your needles you're working on?
Go
ahead.
All right, let me just get to the end of this needle. I'm working on DPN, so it's short. Okay. So I like to work on size 1s. So as you see, I have a set of bamboos and a rosewood needle. And that's because my favorite configuration is to set things up on 4 needles and knit with the 5th one. So I could only find 4 of my clover bamboos. So I substituted in 1 of my rosewoods, which is a tiny bit shorter, and I do like a long needle for my socks. They do sell 4-inch needles, but I find that I feel like I'm knitting more continuously in a circle when I have that extra length. I never have to worry about the stitches falling off the end. And my socks are pretty sizable, so I think I have 17 stitches on each needle. So if I was only using the 4-inch ones, I'd have this much end left, and in the shifting around, and then I carry my knitting around, so when I put it in the bag, things like to slip around, and the gremlins climb in the bag and kick things off the surface.
Exactly.
You know how they do. So Yes. But Crystal just got a situation for her needles, for her hooks that I really, really like.
But I've tried 2 different cases that I saw on Amazon, because I had a case that I don't have next to me, but it was just a zippered case. It opened like a notebook, but it zippered and it had 2 separate sections. So there were 2 zippers, and one had just space for hooks, and the other section they also had the little pouch for keeping like your notions and whatever. But I try to avoid keeping zippers around my crochet whenever possible, because when I threw that in the bag with my work, I would find that sometimes when I went to take it out, the yarn was caught in, that little space under the zipper pull.
Oh, no bueno. Yeah.
It would get caught in that. So I'm really, really nervous about having zippers around my crochet. So I like the roll cases. And I actually had a roll case that our other sister gifted to me, but it got too small. Once I started buying the big crochet hooks, the case just got too small. In fact, it had a little button on the front and the button popped off. I just kept using it anyway. So I saw 2 different roll cases. Now this case, actually, I just wanted the case, but it came with like so much stuff in it. So in this case, see, it has a little string so you can tie it. And it just has a bunch of slots inside for various size hooks. And then it has this Velcro section. And it came with almost all of these hook slots full. So it had was it plastic or metal? I think it had metal hooks, and then it also had the polymer clay hooks, and it also had steel hooks. So the whole thing was full. It came with stitch markers, it came with snips, it came with a tape measure, it came with cable needles. I gave the cable needles to Lisa, and this whole thing came full of supplies for $25. So I tried this one. So I had all my hooks and everything in this case. But a couple of little things that didn't work for me. One is that there's no upper flap. So I was worried about some of my hooks slipping out, because the elastic, sometimes the elastic is a little too small, sometimes a little too big. And I was worried about my hooks slipping out. The other thing is that over here, if you can see, this flap here doesn't go all the way to the end. So things can fall out right here. So I was worried about that too. So luckily I had purchased the second case. This one didn't come with any supplies in it.
It's just a case.
Yes. But so far, I think I'm happy with this one. We'll see. I'm fickle. But so I have all my hooks in here, except the ones that are currently with projects. Those are my steel hooks. Now it has a top flap. The top flap doesn't come down all the way over to the tops of the hooks. But when you close it, I think it still makes an effective guard against the hooks falling out.
Yeah.
And then it has a zipper pouch. The only thing I don't like is that you can't see what's in the zipper pouch. So you do have to do a little rooting around in there to get all your supplies, because I have quite a bit in this pouch. But the pouch is big enough that this isn't very bulky. And I also like that it's denim.
Yes.
So it's just going to be very rugged. I can toss it around from project bag to project bag. I don't feel like I have to be super careful with it. It's also black. I think they also had a blue one, but I got the black one. So, it'll hide a lot of dirt, because this thing's going to get knocked around. It's going to get my old one, my old rolled case that I just outgrew. I used it almost every day. It's just one of the most important things I had in my little arsenal. And so I'm going to try this one for a few days, but so far so good. The most important thing is that it holds everything. I need it to hold, my regular size hooks, my big chunky hooks. And I just found out I thought I had the biggest size hooks, but there's 2, because this is a 10 millimeter and that's my biggest hook. But I believe there's a 12 and a 15.
Oh, wow. So, what's the letter size on it? Is it like a Q?
It must be, because this is a N/P.
Oh.
So but so I'm gonna have to go get those hooks too, just so I have a full set. But it also holds the smallest steel hooks as well. So just having enough slots for all of the hooks was the absolute most important thing. And this does that. And then I just like how it rolls up and ties. One tiny little quibble is if you can see the string here, it's not centered. It's a little high, and I don't know why that is. And it's going to drive me a tiny little bit nuts. But and it doesn't really affect the function except that the all of the weight in the bag is down here. So having the string up here,
you know what? Just wrap it down around the body.
Yeah, that's what I have to do. I just have to like adjust it when I'm tying it. But it's just a thing to be aware of, that this is just too high.
And we'll put a link to this in the description bar.
But so far, I mean, I needed a reorganization because I really didn't like the zipper case. It took me forever also to figure out which side was which. So if I wanted a hook or if I wanted a stitch marker, I usually had to unzip both cases. Eventually I worked that out, but that was also just a little annoying for me. So I like that everything is now on like one flat plane.
Yeah. Well, I am hopelessly disorganized with my needles. I'll tell you the truth. I have a bunch of different kinds of needles. You know how it is for knitters. You have metal needles, wood needles, bamboo needles, straight needles. Actually, I don't have very many straight needles, but I think I am going to be getting some straight needles because I like straight needles for certain things.
Like what?
For narrower width projects. I made a little cowl that was, only 18 inches wide. Actually, no, it wasn't even 18 inches. It was 10 inches wide. And I found having it on a cord so annoying. I could have just turned much more easily and quickly back and forth if I was using a straight needle, but I just didn't have a straight needle the correct size.
So like what length straight needle do you think you would use most?
For me, they don't need to be super long. 12 inches would be the max. 10 inches would probably be something typical that I would use.
So do you think you need, with all of that, do you think you need more than one case, or like one case for your DPNs and one case for your corded needles?
Well, right now I have a case that I primarily keep DPNs in. I have a couple of sets that have their own cases, and I have some wild needles that I bought individually that are in a couple of places. But where I am organized is in my Notion, because I have a lot of those too, and when you need them, you need them. My favorite Notion situation is the knit kit, because I actually just keep this. I have 3 projects in my project bag right now, and I carry it around with me. And when I don't want to carry a whole bunch of stuff, I have this in the bag, and it's everything I really need, all your essentials. So there's a tape measure. Be aware that it's 40 inches, but if something says knit until this thing is 7 inches long, I can measure out that 7 inches or 8 inches or whatever it is. No problem. It goes back in automatically with the button. It has a hook for rescuing drop stitches, and it's 2-ended. So you get a little one and a big one in one piece. Also just what I need. There's a clicking counter. Actually, I have never used this, but it's a snip. If you just need to, quickly cut something. But it also comes with a scissor inside. And this is what I typically use if I want to cut something. Needle gauge and hook gauge. And it's called a knit kit, but either a knitter or a crocheter could use this very easily. And there's a little space inside where I keep a few stitch markers and some darning needles. So I quite literally have every single thing I need in one compact case. So I love this piece. I've had this one for a few years now. And I just find that for the size, it weighs almost nothing. And for the size, it's really incredibly complete. So if I'm just going to be on the go, this is what I carry.
Right. We gotta get your needles organized.
Yeah. But my real Notions case when I'm at home is this. And this is just a ginormous collection of everything. Of stitch markers, the good old Susan Bates. I use this actually for when I am using a chart, because I can highlight the line that I'm on. And it also magnifies.
And this side is flat.
Yeah. So you just lay it on, and that's very, very helpful. You know, tape measure, like a real tape measure. This one's 120 inches long. And the occasional crochet hook for picking up stitches. But all of that's in there and more. And so when I'm at home, I will usually have this around so that whatever I happen to need, I can just grab. But yes, I will. Maybe we'll vlog about the organization of the needles. We'll do that as a vlog.
Audition some cases and see what works for you.
Oh, no.
I don't even know what all you have. It seems like knitting requires a lot of supplies. Which is another reason that I don't think I could do it. I don't find that I need hooks made out of different materials. That's one of the things.
Well, you know what? They have a hook on the end.
Yeah.
They have a hook on the end. So
my cold dead hands, folks.
But I want you to imagine this. Some yarns are super slippery.
Yeah.
Like I made a little capelet out of a little tiny poncho, really, out of 100% alpaca, and I had it on higher sharps when I started, and it was impossible. The yarn was just like whee, just sliding off that needle. It was just insane.
Very flamboyant.
It was very flamboyant, flagrant even. And when I switched it to bamboo, the stitches could stay on the needle until I was ready to move them. So because we don't have that hook on the end, we control the stitches with the material that the needle is made out of. And if you have like a super sticky yarn, then I wouldn't want to work a super sticky yarn on bamboo because everything's gonna be sticky. The yarn's sticky, the needle's sticky. No, that way lies madness.
But for me, that's just a lot. I like having. I'm very wedded to Clover Amour. I'm gonna try a couple of different hooks now, though, just because I'm having some hand pain. Just because I'm crocheting a lot more than I ever have at any point in my life.
Yeah.
The thing about the Clover Amour is that the grip size changes with the hook size, so that the smaller hooks, that grip is really, really small. The Clover Soft Touch, the grip is the same size regardless of the hook size, and it's just a little bit wider. So I'm going to try those and see if they're just a little bit more comfortable for me.
Yeah.
And Clover might be coming out with some new hooks next year, so I'm going to keep an eye out for those. But I am pencil hold.
Yes.
Most hooks are designed with knife hold in mind. Yeah. So things that are described as ergonomic aren't necessarily for me. I can't use them with my grip.
Right.
I've considered changing my hold, besides the fact that I just really don't want to. It's uncomfortable, and I feel like, maybe over time I would get used to it, but I feel like it puts a lot of pressure on my wrist. So I'd rather change my hook than change my grip.
Yeah. When I crochet, I am a knife hold. Now, here's the funny thing. We got this needle to try out in the shop because it said it was an ergonomic hook. Pardon me, not needle, hook.
That's the Addy Swing.
Yes, the Addy Swing. Nobody liked it. I lent it to people, and I was like, we just got one because we were like, oh, let's experiment with this because we hadn't used it before. I didn't like it, and I'm a knife grip. Crystal didn't like it, and she's a pencil grip.
My mom's knife, and she didn't like it either.
And I thought this was for pencil people just because of the way this is shaped.
Yeah.
This part is shaped wrong for a pencil.
I honestly, I couldn't really use it.
Everybody I lent it to a variety of crocheters. It was like, nah. So we never actually bought in more of these into the shop. But I keep it's in my bag for rescuing stitches that I drop.
But this is the first time I'm ever considering changing hooks.
I know.
I love the thing was I switched to the Clover Amour because I was using the metal boy hooks, and I had tremendous hand pain, and it was awful. And as soon as I switched to these, that stopped.
No more.
Now the hand pain's in a completely different position now, and it's just about having your hand in that position for a long time. I'm also just trying to get in the habit of taking breaks.
Yes. I said that.
I don't like it.
And that's what she said.
I don't want to do it.
She's like,
but
now breaks.
I feel like I'm wasting my time. Like I could be making stitches. Hello. But if I want longevity, if I want to be able to keep crocheting like this, I'm gonna have to start changing some things. And I'm just also trying to stretch and exercise my hand a little bit more. Mm-hmm. I was just telling Lisa, I don't know if they still make these, but it was supposed to be like for working out, and it was just like a little thing that you squeeze.
Yeah.
It had like a hinge or something in the middle, a spring. It had like a single spring in the middle, and it was just 2 hand grips. And I think I might really need that.
Yeah.
So I'll see what Amazon has. But I think I am very specifically going to have to start exercising my hand a little bit.
Yeah. We did our first live sit and stitch last week.
Yeah, in person.
In months.
It was lovely.
It was really fun.
People really enjoyed it. They want to do it again. We'll see.
Yeah, I will be sending out.
Because it might be cold.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
I was checking the weather, and it shouldn't rain, because that's really the thing. Because, we work with a lot of wool. We all have things we can keep warm in. I was perfectly warm outside. Nobody else said they were cold. We can dress for it. But it's the rain that's the bummer. It's the rain. Because last Sunday, it said there was a 5% chance of rain. It rained a little bit,
but like for a couple of minutes.
I was just like, I felt so thwarted by the weather. I was like, really?
And then it was fine.
Yeah, it was fine. It did rain for just a couple of minutes, but I took it personally.
And very lightly. It was like a drizzle.
Says the person who was inside.
But you know what? The furniture wasn't wet.
It was a little wet. Jessica brought a towel.
Nobody left. Nobody went inside, so I assumed it was fine.
No, she was actually very wise. She brought a towel, put the towel down, sat on down. I just said, my clothes will absorb it. Will be fine. But we had a really fun time. It was really great to see everybody again. And the courtyard downstairs in front of the store is so pleasant. And it does not hurt that there is a bakery full of baked goods, coffee, and hot apple cider, like 2 steps away.
I didn't even know I liked hot apple cider. Now I can't do without it.
We have it most days.
Yeah, several days a week for sure.
Several days a week.
We're only at the store 4 days a week.
Yeah.
And we have hot apple cider like maybe 3.
Yeah. Almost every afternoon. But you know what? We really like hot beverages, and with my throat last week, I really needed to keep it lubricated, and it's not caffeinated because I try not to have more than 2 caffeinated beverages a day. I was like super sick, right? So my throat was bothering me. I had laryngitis, and one day I was home and I drank hot Earl Grey tea all day. I got 0 sleep that night. I mean 0. I saw the sun come up the next morning. Finally, at 5 a.m., I got up. I took 2 Benadryls, and I got, I think, maybe 4 hours of sleep because it was a day when we had to go to the store.
I had no idea any of this was going on.
Yeah,
I kept seeing her with a cup, but it just never occurred to me that every time there was something caffeinated in the cup. So we're going to have to get some hot apple cider for home.
Yeah, I got some peppermint tea in so that I can have something uncaffeinated because I was like,
I had no idea.
I didn't you know what? And you're sick and you're loopy and you're stupid. So I didn't even think about it as caffeinated. I was just like, okay, I'm just going to drink some tea and see if I can get my voice to work. Yeah, so that's what's going on. I will be sending out a newsletter. Well, when you see this will have been in the past. But I'll be sending out a newsletter. I checked the weather. It looks like we'll be able to get together again this coming Sunday. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and I think it'll be fun. It was really, really nice. We sit under the trees. It's leafy and pretty, and there's a little pond. It's really fun. What can you do? Oh, we got in some yarn that I will also be talking about in the newsletter. If you are not in the newsletter yet, do join our newsletter because we do have subscriber-only specials, and I am going to do a special on this yarn for subscribers only first, and then I will bring it out to everyone else. And it's a limited quantity, so you definitely want to join the newsletter for that. We do have private lessons going on. Two of our favorite people who take private lessons have started their lessons again, and it's really fun. And we do have classes happening, so do check that out. And also in the newsletter, I will provide a link in the description bar. Do we have anything else today?
No, I think that's good.
I think that covered it. All right, then. We will see you guys next week. Thank you for spending this time with us today. Bye-bye.